This episode is presented to you by NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. With NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV, you can watch your favorite team's out-of-market Sunday games, plus watch up to 4 games at once with Multiview. Don't miss the race to the playoffs. NFL Sunday Ticket is now just $39 when bundled with YouTube TV, where you get even more football. Visit youtube.com/Spotify offer to sign up now. Lowest price on YouTube TV with base plan. Rest of 2023 season. Terms and embargoes apply. No cancellations.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
Apple Gift Card is a practical gift that unlocks a world of entertainment and fun. You can send it via email or give a physical card to your loved ones. Your friends and family can spend it on their favorite Apple services, including Apple subscriptions. Apple Gift Card can be used to buy all things Apple: products, accessories, apps, games, movies, TV shows, iCloud Plus, and more. Visit apple.com for details and to send Apple gift cards to your friends and family this holiday season.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Welcome back to Keeping Current with Kansas City. This is Thad Bell from the Blue Testament. I have with me, as usual, Daniel Sperry from the Kansas City Star. It's harder to keep current with Kansas City right now because there seems to be a lot of news lately. First up, report from NWSL issued their findings, their report, I guess, their punishments, and the bad news is there was a lot of clubs and coaches who have been punished heavily, justly. And I don't put that as the bad news. The bad news is that there were so many of them. The good news is that Kansas City was not punished in any way, shape, or form because there was no evidence of retaliation. I would put that as good news.
Yeah, I think so. At least in terms of they don't receive any sanctions. I think we can go back and look at the whole situation. And, I personally have some questions as to why it was in the report. Then if they didn't have any findings in this report that the league put out today of their corrective actions, they felt that the only 2 teams that were named in the NWSL and the joint report, and that the league named in the joint report that they did not punish was the Kansas City Current and the Washington Spirit. The Washington Spirit were found that the sale of the team to Michelle Kang was sufficient, and the change in the staffing and everything resulting from the investigations that the league chose not to impose any further corrective action on the club as they had already taken a significant course of corrective action. The Kansas City Current was them kind of saying, yeah, we put in there that there was a concern, but there was no finding that the club retaliated against players, is officially what it said in the report. While it is concerning that several players raised concerns about being mistreated or retaliation upon raising those concerns, there is no finding that the club retaliated against those players. So I have my questions as to why it was in there in the first place under the quote concerns. If you are going to button up a report like that, after the fact in a single line fashion, I have my questions. Will they ever get answered? No, because my questions from the first time around still haven't gotten answered. So this is what it is. But I think good news for the overall club operations that they didn't receive any sanctions here, and that they were, absolved of actually being, the accusations that were lobbied. I think people kind of questioned whether or not Chris and Angie, the shine was real. I think we did too. And I think quickly as these cycles go, we've moved on to other news that we will definitely cover in this podcast.
Yeah, and well, it doesn't mean there was nothing that couldn't have been done better or that should have been done
Agreed.
better, but it does raise if there was nothing that needed to be punished, it is almost a shame that it was in that report in the first place to basically label everybody as having a problem. So it's a little bit of a concern there, but let's move on to happiness, positive stuff, fun.
Happiness.
I would
fun.
say of the NWSL free agent class, the first NWSL full free agent class, the number one sought after free agent was Debinha, and guess who landed in Kansas City today?
Oh boy, Debinha landed here in Kansas City. Yeah, man. I was shocked when I heard. I also laughed out loud because when all the trade stuff was going down earlier in the week, over last week, I had texted someone in the club and I said, "You guys jumping in on the chaos? Question mark. When do you announce Debinha? Monday next week sounds great." And I sent this like on Wednesday last week as a complete joke, and of course got zero response. And I was like, "How about here's we've got some player news coming out at 3, but it's routine." And I said, "Okay, fine." So I figured they were done until this morning. We got Debinha. And yeah, what a move. 2-year deal for the star Brazilian forward, with I believe a mutual option for 2025. Yeah. And she will play this year as they look to win a title heading into the new stadium and continue to build that momentum going forward. I think that's something that you and I talked about at the end of last season, was that you want to see this team continuing to build that momentum this year as well, after they runners up. Now you've got the new stadium a year out. And so this season is really imperative for them as a club, commercially and financially, to knock it out on the field to continue to drive the interest and for them, their own prices up on that new stadium when it's set to open in 2025. And what better way to do it when the best NWSL free agent likely to hit the market really within this year or maybe even next year too. I haven't taken a peek ahead to what the class would look like next year, but Debinha is about as big as it gets. So I applaud the club. I don't want to ramble on too long here, but I believe there was a report last week too of them missing out on Melchi Dumarnay, the Haitian forward that plays in France. Stephen Goff from the Washington Post was all over that, that potential move, and it did not come to fruition for the current, but it very clearly showed that they had an ambition to pick up a very large name that would cost a lot of money. And so it doesn't surprise me that they ended up going hard after Debinha, but it really is it does surprise me to actually see it happen. I think it's just one of those moves that's so big that it kind of, you're still taken aback by it.
Yeah, it's not quite Ronaldo to Sporting Kansas City level big, but it's really big within NWSL for her to land here. After I started this off with saying that she was the most sought after free agent this year, but when the free agent list came out and I looked through the first few players, I mean, I looked through, like, if I was going to have a wish list myself, they ended up getting 3 of the 5 of my first 5. And I honestly, it might've been the top 3 because I had a lot of concerns about one of them and whether or not they were going to play.
Yep.
She still hasn't been signed. So
yep.
That was also, Julie Ertz was one of the ones that people were speculating Kansas City might be going for because they could use another defender, although she's been mostly playing midfield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I saw that too last night, with that, people were like, well, they've been looking after free agent defenders. I mean, that's a very logical conclusion that you can draw when you look at the roster, the holes, the players that they've lost and haven't replaced. That, wow, shocking, center back is a need. Congrats. You know how to deduce what's on the free agent list and what a team's need might be. But at the same time, I think that's been mostly the expectation, is that like, where is that big center back signing going to be? Because it felt like if they talk about they want star power, or they talk about all this stuff, the best way to really help that team is that. But man, if you're going to play three at the back, I mean, you got to score goals to keep up with what you might be letting out. Boy, do they have a line that's going to score a lot of goals, I think.
Oh, definitely. But looking at like North Carolina last year, they scored the second most amount of goals in the league. Had they gave up a lot of goals, but they were also a positive 13 goal differential, I think it was, which the current was down at like 0. So
Yeah.
they did pretty well.
Yeah,
Chicago also did fairly well in that regard, and they got, the two best midfielders out of Chicago. So I do think the midfield will help solidify the back line more so than
I
what
agree.
it,
And I think
that'll
we've
be a big
talked
difference. Yeah.
I think we've talked tactically on this pod too, that we think that we've thought for a while that the midfield was the reason why the defense was always so much under pressure, is that while they were really good at winning the ball, they were a little careless with it when they won the ball, and that
Yes.
created a lot of turnovers and odd man situations that led to goals, or led to set pieces that led to goals, because they were a little leaky on set pieces as well last year. So I think overall though, I guess I'll get a chance. Maybe I'll play a little host to you here. I'll pose this question to you. If you look at that, the forward line and the midfield line, do you really believe that there's another team in the NWSL that is as deep as the KC Current on both those lines?
The forward and the midfield line?
Mm-hmm.
Not at the moment. No. I mean, I have to
Yeah,
kind of double check, but I would have said North Carolina with their offense, but no, that's been blowing up.
mhm. I'm with you, and that was a question that I was thinking about. I was like, I don't know that another team in the NWSL is as deep as what the Current are going to put out there on their roster, and especially on those lines. I still have questions about the backline depth. We just talked about that, but that midfield, if Sam Mewis does play, is arguably the best midfield in the world, maybe on a roster, close to like maybe. I mean, we're talking. You look at this roster and you compare it with what's out there, and maybe the Women's Super League, in La Liga with Barcelona. Look at some of the Champions League clubs; it's up there with that.
Yes.
If not up there, if not at the top of that. And I think that, I know it's kind of corny to hear, though, we want to be the best club in the world type conversation, but you go and make moves like this, and make the moves that they've continued to make like this, when you want to do that, and it's kind of putting their money where their mouth is. And at every turn so far, the Longs have done that. And this signing is just yet another one of those examples of them doing so.
Oh, absolutely. I think I saw a quote just like yesterday or the day before that Angel City wants to be the New York Yankees cap of the women's soccer world or something like that. So they want to be recognized as, the iconic soccer team and women's soccer and stuff. I think the Current are beating them to it. We have so much to see still how things turn out. Obviously, this team could fail miserably. I mean, Coach Potter did excellent with much less talent last year. How well does he do with a lot more talent?
Do they all get right leg injuries like 2022? I mean, it's all a possibility here.
Yeah.
No, go ahead though.
But you mentioned Sam Mewis. I still have zero faith that she plays at this point. I have zero faith that Desi comes back, although I keep being told they still want her to come back. But with still no word on Sam and how everything ended last year, I would be very happy to be wrong, but I don't know that she'll play anymore. I just don't know. I'm not saying she won't. I hope she does. She's such an amazing player. But yeah, if they have her, it'd be great. I just don't have any. I don't count on that, and I think this move also kind of shows that might be in the works, because they have a very crowded midfield that they don't need all those players.
Yeah, and I mean, also maybe creating a bunch of trade assets as well too in doing so. Yeah, the Sam Mewis thing at this point is going to be a big question mark, and you're right. This does continue to not only I don't know that you make this move if you're confident that Sam Ewis plays. But then again, you think of the Cristiano Ronaldo thing to Kansas City. I mean, we said it on the podcast I recorded with you guys. At some point, there's a level of player that kind of transcends all those question marks that you get if you can, and then you figure it all out after the fact. And personally, I prefer when teams try and do that. Think of LAFC. I mean, look at what they did with their roster in the summer window. And they went after it. They got it. They asked questions later. They figured out a way to make everybody fit. Now, everyone says, oh, wow, they can get Aaron Long too. Well, Gareth Bale just retired. So there's a DP slot that opens up. Congrats, you have Aaron Long space. You get these things and you ask questions later. But at the same time, I think you're a little bit more confident in going after this move if you feel like you really need it. And if you feel like you really need it, then that's probably because there's serious question marks over whether or not Sam Ewis plays. And, there's not been a lot of talk about that. We have attempted, I know both of us have attempted to get answers there and have been met with the same non-response pretty much from everybody that we've asked for the last calendar year. Almost. So we could drone on about it too, whether or not she's going to play a role. But you look at this midfield. I think Debinha kind of played as a forward a little bit in a way, for the Courage, not directly a number, not directly in the midfield. I don't know that the Current played with a true number 10 at all last year either. So where do you see her fitting? What line do you see her as a 10 with Gautreau and Brian underneath her? Do you see her maybe more as a wide player with Lynn and Cece in there? Like how would you see this all working on the field?
Oh, that's such a difficult question. I mean, I do see her as a 10, more of a 10 than anybody else that's on the Current right now, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have Lynn Williams, Mimi Larson, and Kristen Hamilton as forwards, and not to mention Cece Kaiser and Elise Bennett, and I'm not sure if I'm missing somebody else there. That's 5.
No, they've gotten rid of JC Johnson and Eddie McCain at this point, so those were not in the factored list.
No, well, they weren't anyway. So I mean, I would love to be able to see them maintain possession more with Di Bernardo and Gautreau and Debinha. I think that's a midfield trio that will hold a lot more possession with a Mimi Larson at the tip of the spear kind of thing. I think that's going to help them maintain possession and generate a lot more opportunities. Hamilton was almost always best when she was running at somebody, but if you give her some time to set up and make a move, she can make some crosses and some great shots also. And we know what Lynn can do. So
yeah,
but there'll be a team that can counter you, can be direct, and should be able to maintain possession. They should be able to do all of it.
Yeah. They're also a team that I think of, like, you've got so many people that you can bring off the bench that can impact a game in different ways than the players that they're replacing, but are equally dangerous players.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to be said for that, is that, like, I look at the Man City squad, I think men's soccer, Man City squad, and you think of the fact that they could probably start a game without Riyad Mahrez or Phil Foden on the field, have an incredibly dangerous team, but they throw those guys on. They're completely different than the players that they take off for them, and they still are incredibly impactful, incredibly dangerous, and can absolutely tear you apart. And I think of, the ability to bring off Kristen Hamilton and just let her run for the final 20 minutes and just hound every defender and every midfielder when they don't have the ball. And you bring on Chardonnay, because Coran is great at retaining possession. She's a great end game sub for a Brian or a Gautreau, or Di Bernardo, in that sense that, and popping into that midfield. Cece Kaiser, if Debinha's got a knock or something like that, Cece Kaiser is a more than adequate replacement. And I just think of all those players too that are going to be at the World Cup. They still have, they're going to they're going to have to play some games while their star crew is at the World Cup. I wouldn't be shocked if there's at least one or two. So to me, you do this because you've got to have those games, and you've got to get those games, and you got to have roster depth to do so. So I'm also, too, one last thought, by integrating the Challenge Cup into the schedule, into the calendar, the way that they want to, like a US Open Cup, with them trying to minimize games during the World Cup, now you create fixture congestion and a lot of travel for these teams and midweek opportunities and stuff like that. And you're going to need to rotate the squad a little bit more. And so I think that was one thing that killed them last year, is when they had to play the 3 games in 7 days type thing, especially in May. They were doing that a lot, and it wore them down for a while. And to be able to have the roster,
that slow start.
Yep. And to be able to have the roster to withstand something like that, and to freshly rotate incredibly talented players through. I mean, man, they look like a team that's built for lifting that trophy wherever it's going to be lifted at next year.
Yeah, I think I want to see if there's any more moves in the next week or two, because there's still some free agents out there. There are defender free agents, and we have the draft coming up in 3 days from when we record this pod. This is on Monday. It'll be on Thursday. And we'll have another pod either late Thursday night or Friday sometime to discuss the draft. But I think some of those defenders might be able to, the extra defenders might be able to be put in there. I don't know if they'll go after free agents or not, because you have Ball and Merrick and Loera, and who else am I missing right now? There and a couple others. You probably want another goalie as an option, because you never know if AD France is going to go to the World Cup. It's going to be a little harder to make that World Cup because it's only a 23 player roster, not 26 like the men. Unless that changes, because all the coaches are asking for 26
and have been very publicly against FIFA's decision to make it 23 only.
So you never know. They could lose Franch, Mason, Hamilton, and Debinha to the to the World Cup. And that's going to give opportunities for others to play in those games around that time. So it's going to be, there's a lot of midfielders. Okay, so I think we've also missed one of the biggest stories out of this. We at least, I know I talked about it with somebody else, but we haven't talked about it here. Debinha has been the number 10. Lowe's the number 10. That's 2 5'1" midfielders. They're going to have to fight over that number. Who do you take in that fight?
Lowe is so scrappy. I'll take her any day of the week. I also am afraid of what she'd do to me how hard she would punch me if I said that she would lose that fight. So
I don't know if she'd punch you. She might pull a Berhalter and kick you. I know this is audio medium, but I wish you could see Sperry's face after I made that terrible joke.
Oh my goodness!
All right,
sir.
No, it's just a little bit of a joke.
Yeah, I'd probably take Lowe in that. We had a good conversation too about like what the fight would be over the jersey number between Ronaldo and Johnny Russell if that took place. Yeah, man, I don't know. Casey Current, give us like a good kickboxing match between Debinha and Lowe, or a jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu grapple. That'd be something like that. Would be super cool. But
maybe
no, we'll
crossbar
see.
challenge probably, but
crossbar challenge would be fun too. Crossbar challenge at the opening game. The winner puts the warm-ups before the opening match. Winner puts on the jersey on the field and move on.
They could both do like their best celebration and then get fans to judge it. That would be another way to decide that.
Selly competition, yeah.
All right, so
I'm down for it. Between there's another one. Between the good Brazilian dances that we've gotten from all the Brazilians during the World Cup. I know Davinha's got some herself, and the Brazilian women's national team too is also notorious for some awesome celebrations. How much did Lowe's hashtag Sally Squad push towards the end of last season play a role in getting Debinha here?
There's probably a little bit of it, because I think she did mention, wanted to go a place where it was fun and happy. But and again, is one of the things that was mentioned was the training center, the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's a little dividend that's coming out of those. That's not so little and is going to pay off.
Yep.
It, it
And the
it
stadium.
helps. Yeah.
It does. It does. I the other thing too, like how much of that separated them from an Arsenal in the women's Super League. I know she was heavily linked with Arsenal, very heavily linked with Orlando too, and within the NWSL. Kind of impressive that they were able to keep this as quiet as they did for as long as they did. And I mean that's those are two. Orlando is Orlando, but uh there's Marta there. It is a Florida destination. At the same time, Arsenal has the name power behind it. They are a decent team in the women's Super League, but man, to beat two teams out like that and to do it so quietly, kind of impressive. Kind of impressive.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Um, yeah, there was no rumors about about her coming here
Mm,
whatsoever.
nope.
And it's also pretty clear that everybody who was speculating on other players coming here or positional players in that announcement were either very speculating or had really bad sources. Because I was expecting, based upon somebody's reporting, that it would be a defender.
Sources.
Yeah,
Definitely.
sources matter. Um,
Mhm.
all right. What else do we need to talk about, Mr. Sperry?
Man,
I feel
I
like
don't know.
there's a
I'm
lot,
good.
but
But I feel like there's a lot. I mean, we have the draft. Let's just run over it real quick before we get out of here. Draft Thursday. It's a 5 o'clock Central Time start. You can find the first hour of it on. Sorry, maybe first 2 hours. Oh yeah, first hour of it on CBS Sports Network, which is potentially hidden for a lot of you cord cutters. Um, if you have YouTube TV, you should be able to get it though. And then I believe it will be on Paramount Plus, if I'm correct, for the rest of it. The final, which would probably be the final 2 round or final 3 rounds or so of the draft. The KC Current, their highest pick will likely be whatever is the Gotham's second highest pick. And at the moment, that is the 10th pick overall in the draft in the first round. We will see if that changes at all. That is part of that weird trade agreement with Victoria Pickett. Basically, the second highest pick for the Gotham ends up with the Kansas City Current. So if they trade out of the first round, then the Current may have may not have any picks in the first round, but it's still possible. I think oh yeah, they can take. So they currently have 23 players under roster. They can take actually up to 40 to preseason. So we will see how much larger that list grows. They have 8 picks. They could conceivably make all 8 picks and bring a bunch to training camp. It doesn't make sense though if you're not going to draft a bunch of players that you don't envision making your roster, and you're going to have to do a massive cut after your spring training or your winter training camp before the season. Doesn't make sense. So we'll see. I anticipate there being some kind of trade on the Currents end during the draft, whether it's just a pick for allocation money, which they might need to pay for Debinha, or anything like that. But until roster compliance, they are allowed to carry up to 40 players on their roster until the cut down day prior to the start of the season.
and currently on the draft
Votes.
of the players who have signed up for the draft. Have you went through any of those? There's one player that I actually know. I've seen her play. I think my daughter actually has been in training camp with her a couple times.
I looked
Rylan
over the
Childers.
list initially, but I am not deep into. I'm not deep enough into like college soccer, women's college soccer, to like look at that list and be like, oh yeah, or, like I literally know Alyssa Thompson, and that's about it at this point. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, this is actually one of the weaker times when I've have knowledge about the women's college players, just because the last couple of years has been really busy. But this is one player that I do know because Rylan Childers like I said, played in the same club as my daughter, played for FCKC Youth Club, actually played at UMKC for I think a year before transferring to KU. Her dad was a head coach in FCKC Youth Club that then became KC Athletics. So yeah, she's pretty good. I don't know how high she will get drafted. I don't think she's like a top 10 pick or anything, but it'd be interested to see her get picked. So there's my draft preview.
Yeah. Solid work. Solid work, Thad.
Hey, it's using my my core knowledge here.
Core knowledge. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for, we will definitely be back. I'm not going to wrap it up. That's that shot, but
No.
we will definitely be back, to talk draft. The draft is scheduled to be potentially on broadcast through 10 p.m. Central on Thursday. So I have no clue whether or not we're actually going to want to record after watching 5 hours of the NWSL draft. However, we will have recorded something by Friday. So hopefully hitting your podcatchers by Saturday.
Should actually once I get it posted, it doesn't take super long, but
no. And Thad gets it posted because I'm headed to Florida next Saturday, so I will be absolved of this process the moment we're done.
Well, you don't do any of that work anyway, man. You just
you don't ask me to.
No. That's my end of it at this point. But that's okay. I will get that posted as fast as possible. We will do it either Thursday night or Friday sometime. And it'll just be very interesting to see who they take. All right. I will go ahead and wrap it up because we do have stuff to do. I have like 72 articles I should have written over the last 4 days and didn't. And then today I was going to get it done and all the news broke. So, yeah. All right. If I don't talk to you until Thursday, have fun. And as people listen to this, let us know what we should be doing or could be doing better, and do that subscribe stuff that everybody always says at the end of podcasts or at the beginning of them. And thanks for listening.